Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Deep Dive Film School uses the footage only for purposes of education, commentary, and criticism under fair use. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School!
This week, we are getting into our second installment of our Richard Linklater Fest with 2006, A Scanner Darkly.
Let's dive in. All right, everybody, please make sure to like and subscribe if you like what you see / hear. Also, if you are only enjoying this in the audio format, please take a peruse of our YouTube channel. There's a lot of extra little jokes and some funny visual things happening there as well. So we'd love for you to subscribe there.
Work really hard for those edits.
That is very true. Very, very hard. My poor fingers. But let's talk about this second movie of the Linklater Festival. Now, I had never seen this. Have you?
No, I have not.
No.
Me no have not.
But it's, obviously this is the second experiment of Linklater doing rotoscoping. The first one was Waking Life, which was a couple of years before this. Yeah. And Waking Life was really sort of the companion piece to Slacker.
Okay.
A little more dream logic-y than this. But again, I think that it made a lot of sense in Waking Life because characters are talking. There's a really famous scene where some characters are talking about the sky and cloud formations, and the camera is on the two characters, and as they're talking, they turn into the clouds with their mouths and eyes inside of them. So you go, oh, this works with this sort of lucid dreaming concept.
Sure.
And here, what did you think about the rotoscoping here? Like, did it play a purpose beyond it just making it look more unique?
Absolutely. First off, it adds to the drug movie element in a way that no other drug movie has.
Where our very first scene, we open with a character feeling like he's got bugs crawling all over him, and so we see those bugs.
This is a great drug movie.
It really is.
I was really happy with this movie. I was really stoked to watch this for the first time. I thought you had seen it.
I had not.
Which is why you're recommending it. So that's great that we both haven't seen it.
I just knew that it was...
I'm really sad I missed this. It kind of got swept
here.
under the rug.
Mm-hmm. I think in part because it's so strange.
I think the rotoscoping is really fun way to watch a movie if you do it right.
Yep.
There's probably a way to do it wrong, but people like Waltz with Bashir and certain
people do an amazing job with it.
The Tower's an amazing example of it being done right. I think it really plays with reality. I think it plays with the lines a lot, blurs the lines of what's actually happening. I also think it makes a much easier shoot when they're on set, so it allows them to be free because they don't have to worry about a light being in the way. They filmed this in 23 days, but it took 18 months to animate.
Right. Well, and apparently there were some issues with the first animation studio that they worked with, even though that group of people had worked on Waking Life and had really come up with certain elements such as the scramble suit, which we'll talk more about in a minute. That first team did all that, and then when Linklater and team caught up with them, the production team caught up with those guys and were like, how's it going? They were months behind where they were supposed to be. Yep. So apparently there was a little bit of drama where they had to like wrestle away the actual footage from them and be like, sorry, we got to go with this other team. They still give them credit on the finished product. But, it's like you said, it's super labor intensive. Apparently there was a story about how Robert Downey Jr. Kept redoing this take over and over because he wanted to get the smoke ring that he was blowing out perfect.
But he didn't realize.
They're like, dude, don't worry about the smoke ring. Like we'll make one.
Yeah.
We'll make you into a bug at one point. We'll do whatever we want.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's wild.
The rotoscoping is really interesting here because, obviously Just to go through the plot really quickly,
Yeah, like U.S. has just kind of lost the drug war. It seems we're kind of in a not too distant future. It seems as well.
That's technically the past. The book was written in 77 and takes place in 94, which is why Linklater still made it take place in 94, which is why a lot of the fashion of our characters seems a little antiquated, feels like 90s. There's that June of 44 Anatomy of Sharks poster behind him in the drug house they hang out in.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't realize it was the 90s until I started doing research and was like, that explains why Woody Harrelson's outfit totally feels like mid-90s, right?
Yeah.
Like, and his hair and just like some of the lingo. And so it is this fake future of the past, which is something that I think we see a lot of.
It seems a little more futuristic, especially with the suits and the tech. Some bit of the technology, I guess, is kind of more where I was leaning.
Definitely, but I think that it's that also interesting alternative history. You think of something like The Watchmen. The Watchmen takes place in 85, and even the movie, they made it take place in 85. Even though there aren't those flying ships in 85, that's when the story took place, so they went and sort of did a reversal on that, and I think they did the same thing here. But this idea that we have these double, triple, quadruple secret agents who are working on trying to help get rid of this substance D. Slow death.
Yeah. Keanu's an undercover cop.
Right.
And he's basically, gets hooked to this in a certain way and has to also he's living in a couple realities here. Yes. And it's really fun to play with. Like the way that he put this movie together, like I was thinking about this and, I compared him to Gus Van Sant a little while ago. And I do think they do have some similar careers, but Linklater, this movie and the movie next week, has a way of keeping me interested where Gus Van Sant wants to sit on 10 minutes on somebody reading the phone book, literally
eating a bowl of cereal.
Yes. And I'm like, I get what you're doing to a point.
Yeah.
Here he's just so much more heady, I think, and so much more interesting to watch. And even though sometimes it does trail off, like in Slacker, there's moments, and even here there's moments, but like I'm still engaged. I still want to know what's going to happen, and they create such a cool environment here. I really like this movie. I was really happy that we put it on the list. And, we got Keanu, Robert Downey Jr., Woody Harrelson, and Winona Ryder. There's some scenes I'm like, I've never seen these four great actors in one room together. This is awesome.
And, you talk about like what it is that makes what he's doing different. And I think it's a couple of things. One is he's so good at dialogue and so good at letting characters bounce off of each other and letting the camera kind of follow where it needs to. And the second thing is, even in a movie like this that needs to ramp up the claustrophobia, that needs to ramp up the paranoia and this almost like soul-shattering sense of loss of identity through drug abuse, through this almost like Donnie Brasco-esque, like, am I losing myself by being the undercover agent? He isn't afraid to mix in with that this drop-dead hilarity, these incredibly funny moments. Most often, Robert Downey Jr. and Woody Harrelson, those two guys bouncing off
their
each
brotherly
other.
love and their relationship is
fantastic.
Like, by the time we get to the tow truck scene, which is one of my favorite scenes in the whole show, the whole movie. But like just them together, just riffing off each other. Like Robert Downey Jr. needs to be able to do this more.
Yes.
Like apparently he stuck Post-it notes with his lines all around the set, and so he could just randomly reel them off. Just as he's just going around
whenever
the
he
camera.
needs to.
And whenever he needs more, he looks a certain way and sees a joke and keeps going with it. And like, man, that's so fun to watch him do that in his prime.
Yes. Well, and I think that he obviously he's going to pull from his own personal experience, but the druggy paranoid logic that happens here.
It's got some fear and loathing moments.
Definitely. Well, one of my favorites. But the difference is that when Terry Gilliam did Fear and Loathing, he went with it, and there's only one or two little moments where we go into the psychology of the hallucination.
Yes.
Most of the time, the camera is able to stay outside of it. One of my absolute favorites of this is the 18-speed bike.
Oh, yeah, so good.
Because, and I saved
the 9-speed bike.
I saved the graphic to put up here because You only need 9 gears to have an 18-speed bike. That's how it works. No one stole the gears from these guys. No one, right? Like the whole and the fact that the camera just sits back and watches these guys wind themselves up into this idea of like,
love this scene.
These kids got a racket going. That's what's happening here. Okay, get the bike. We got to go see if we can find these other gears.
And like in the grand scheme of the movie, scenes like that don't really mean anything to the plot or the story, but it shows you how the people taking substance D, which is like 25% of the community, how they're thinking and where they're going.
How it's making them insane.
How it's making them slowly crazy.
Yes.
And it shows you that, but it also just entertains the hell out of you because, again, these 4 amazing actors are in the room together.
Yeah,
and it's
bouncing lines off of each other like they're throwing a softball
exactly.
to one another.
It's like nothing, and Keanu's mostly quiet, which I think fits him perfectly.
Totally.
I think Linklater does an amazing job of showing people's imperfections.
Yes.
I would
totally agree with that.
In weird, funny ways, but sometimes in one funny way I'm thinking is when the guy with bugs, who is what's his name from Dazed and Confused?
Yes,
the stoner dude.
I forgot his name. To write his name. We'll have it here.
But the same guy, but he's getting arrested because he's going crazy in public. Yes. And the guy reading him his Miranda rights is like forgetting his lines, and he's like, I don't know, you know what they are. Just, here you go.
Fuck it.
But
and
like
just
showing like
head,
even something like as small as that
yes.
guy who's gonna be in there for 5 seconds, his imperfections.
Yes.
And just the imperfections of humanity.
Or the way in which the radio says how this guy's gonna kill himself, but he has to go get a different bottle of wine, and the whole storyline follows him to like, well, he's not gonna drink a Ripple with these pills, so he goes, and then when the guy shows up, the multi-eyed monster from the other dimension that reads all of his crimes for all eternity.
That's right. So good.
And he's just laying on his bed like,
that's one moment where we do step out.
We step out,
reality,
yeah.
Which it's a great moment.
It's a fantastic
all
moment.
All the drugs he's ever done.
Yeah, and like all the times he's cheated anyone or hurt anybody, and then like finally after days and days they got to the 6th grade, right?
Yeah.
So to get back to that rotoscoping idea, though, I think in addition to being able to show the multi-headed being from another dimension that's judging him. To go to the title of this movie, this idea of a scanner darkly, and that Keanu's character Arctur is so immersed both as a drug addict but also as this undercover agent, and they wear these scramble suits. So they wear these suits so that
another way of hiding people's imperfections.
And this reminded me so much of William Burroughs. This reminded me so much of Naked Lunch sort of reality, which is you can have multiple characters in a room, but if all of them are wearing still suits, sorry, that's Dune, scramble suits. Yeah. If all of them are wearing scramble suits, they could potentially be the 4 roommates all talking about the 4 roommates, and none of them know that the other person in the room is that other person. So Arctur is the undercover agent, but no one that he's talking to knows that he's Arctur. He's investigating himself and his roommates.
Yes.
And
in this other reality,
and his job is to sit and watch a series of scanners that are giving him 3D representation of what's happening in his life. And at some point throughout the movie, we realize they said that the substance D that he's taking is making, and I love these doctors that he's talking to about what's happening to his brain. The psych tests are so amazing.
This movie is so fun, and truly I didn't know where it was going either.
Same here.
But it was wholly unique when I was watching it. I really don't know if I've seen a movie quite like it.
So the 2 sides of his brain that are fighting mean that while he's sitting and watching all these scanners, he even forgets that he himself is Arctur. Mm-hmm. When his superior even says, "You might be Arctur," and we hear his thoughts, and he goes, "Well, I'm not Arctur." Right? So even in those moments when he's in the scramble suit, he also doesn't believe that he is himself. Mm-hmm. And so he then watching this on the scanners means that we are now watching him watching it on the scanners. So the separation becomes 8 or 9 layers deep. So that rotoscoping and that ability for rooms to feel like they're floating and that they're morphing in and out of what they're supposed to be only leads us to feel even more detached. Yep. And so it does help in that way where it's like at the very beginning I was like, is this going to be a gimmick? Yeah. And within 10 minutes I was like, this is not a gimmick.
I was going to say, I definitely question, like, is this too distracting? Is it supposed to be distracting? I mean, it is to a point, but like,
Purposefully.
Yes.
Purposefully.
But it is odd how they do it. It's really strange. Because you have these quadrants of their body that keep changing, and that could be a face, a voice. Like, it's
male,
wild.
female, child, adult, old person, young person. Well, and then, apparently all of this stuff, all of the concepts for the scramble suit, as well as the rotoscoping, is what Linklater took when he very first pitched doing A Scanner Darkly. Apparently he grew up with the book, absolutely loved it. And it makes sense why. I mean, the book is probably Philip K. Dick's most personal book, and I want to talk a little bit in a minute about Philip K. Dick, but it's his most personal book in part because he went through a lot of these experiences. He had a lot of issues with drug addiction, Philip K. Dick did. And I think
it's based off his personal experience.
It's based off some of his personal experiences, obviously altered to be a sci-fi story.
Yeah.
But I think that it was something that just really spoke to Linklater from probably when he was a teenager. So he wanted to make this. He wanted to make this story, and the estate for Philip K. Dick said no. So he went and met with the family members, explained the rotoscoping, explained how he was going to do it. He was going to keep it really personal. It wasn't going to be an action movie. It was going to be this really personal story.
Is there's not many sci-fi drug movies. The only one I can even loosely connect would be maybe Upstream Color.
I was going to say Strange Days.
Okay.
I think that the memory
an action
thing
side to it, but
But you're right. Like I think that, which
lot.
is kind of why I said William Burroughs.
Yeah.
This feels way more like that. And again, I think that the paranoia that comes about of like someone spying on us, someone's watching us, someone screwed up that lever in your car, right? Like a screw doesn't
where
just
he puts the note on the front door.
He says, he says, well, screws don't just unscrew themselves. And he's like, right, but if we were driving backwards, it wouldn't. He's like, no, if we were in Australia, it would. And you just go, being a fly on the wall for those druggy conversations is so pitch perfect of what that feels like, where you just go, well, wait, what are we talking about here? Are we actually talking about this?
I mean, I could really watch them hang out all day, and I think that tow truck scene that you're talking about here, where he does talk about the note on the door and everything.
The note on the door.
And Woody Harrelson's his hat. He's like, I just don't fucking get you, man. Are you being serious right now? Like, what really happened?
And you can tell
poor tow truck driver.
Robert, he's just like completely ignoring. Well, the tow truck driver reminded me exactly of the cab driver in Slacker, where
totally.
Linklater's going off about the Wizard of Oz and different pathways and quantum realities, and the driver's just like,
a lot of times I can get bored with a movie like this, but Linklater has this kind of magic way of making the conversation seem random but real.
Yes. Well, and when it needs to get dark, it can get very, very dark. And I think that, one of the things that is so interesting about that is this idea of, again, like I kind of said, this like Donnie Brasco's type thing where it's like you lose your own identity by having to be this other character, pretending to be this other thing. And, when our movie needs to pivot, which it does, it pivots into its third act. And boy, a lot of things happen really quickly. And a lot of it has to do with this sort of faceless government organization, as well as the rehab. And we hear about this special rehab center from the very beginning, with these characters talking about like getting off of slow death, right? Getting off substance D.
Yeah.
And all these conspiracy theories manage somehow to be both fake and true at the exact same time.
Yes.
And I love that logic because I feel like that's, and if I can I put on Professor Bullshit hat for a second?
That's what we've all been waiting for.
So let's talk about Philip K. Dick, or as I wanted to refer to this segment as, let's talk about Dick. Or Get Your Fill of Dick was another. I'm playing with a couple of different.
I like Let's Talk
titles.
About Dick.
Okay, let's talk about. Or maybe You Don't Know Dick. That might be another good one. But Philip K. Dick, obviously, he was this prolific writer through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, mainly science fiction. But his science fiction was such a specific kind of science fiction, right? Where you're really talking about.
You want to list off a few other things that he did?
So obviously we have Minority Report, Blade Runner, Total Recall, Man on the High Castle. Some of his lesser known works, things like Paycheck, which didn't do super well with Ben Affleck, but was also based on another one of his, and obviously influenced, as far as like science fiction being attached to a sense of identity and a sense of reality. you can go to The Matrix, Fight Club, Gattaca, 12 Monkeys, Being John Malkovich, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Memento, The Truman Show.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these are a way of saying, okay, but what if the technology and the world had gotten to a point where you could break up with a girl and then erase your memories of her, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is very much all comes back to Philip K. Dick. And yeah, you have some Ray Bradbury, you have some Isaac Asimov, and some other writers who toyed with these ideas, but not to the depth.
No doubt.
That Philip K. Dick did.
No doubt he's a genius and a very heady person, which makes sense for Linklater, who's a very heady director, to grab hold of that.
But
right?
I think the big difference here is that even when you go to a staple brass ring, top of the line echelon like Blade Runner,
Yeah.
you go, they still turned it into this noir story where he chases down, Rutger Hauer, right? And you go, okay, I mean, yes, the elements of it were amazing, and Dick was incredibly stoked about the version of Blade Runner. He died 4 months before it came out, but he got to see a rough cut of it and was
good.
like, "Oh, this is perfect!" Right?
There are a lot of cuts of that movie, so who knows?
There are. So there's a rough cut before the very first version, but what he meant, what Ridley Scott missed, was that Deckard's character was in love with wanting to have a real animal because everybody owned fake animals, and so he owned this fake sheep, right? There was an android sheep, and he wanted to have a real sheep because it would show a certain level of empathy and humanity if you owned a real animal. And you go, that's such a great weird element that would never have made it into regular Blade Runner. Sure, there's the owl, but not really, right? Mm-hmm. Total Recall, the original story is we can remember it for you wholesale, and in that, the character of Quaid, the description of him looks more like Woody Allen than it does Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? He's this regular, lackadaisical, everyday guy, which then means that when it turns out that he's a secret agent, you as the audience are guessing whether or not that's an implanted memory, right? Like, it doesn't end your paranoia.
Yeah.
Most interpretations of his stuff have been remade into action movies. Even Minority Report, which stayed pretty true to it, changed enough other stuff that it was like, it's close, but it's not really there.
Yeah.
Here, this is so true to the original story
So
of A Scanner
you had
Darkly.
read the original story before this?
No, but I went back afterwards and started reading through all the plot points, and I've read quite a bit of it since I watched the movie last week.
You read quite a bit of Dick?
I've read quite a bit of Dick. I've watched quite a bit of... No, that's not, I don't want to say that either. Anyway, but I think that this paranoid neo-noir, like, more than an action movie, this feels more like a Billy Wilder story or a Raymond Chandler story. It feels very much like this guy living in this house with these other people. Is he the double agent? Is somebody else? Does that make him a triple agent? And even down to the name Arctor. Obviously, Arc means the chief of or the king of, right? Like an archangel.
Yeah.
And so he's like the arc actor. He is like the ultimate actor because he doesn't even know he is one anymore.
I love... when we get into him really working, what is it, with Hank, the other guy who's wearing the suit.
Yes.
And that's kind of his boss.
Which,
and he's
on
kinda going back and
retrospect,
forth.
after the end of this movie, which I don't want to say yet,
We'll get there.
but
Yeah.
made me go, I gotta go back and watch that whole thing again.
I know.
Because their scenes together are amazing, and then once you get the revelation,
Yeah.
it breaks your brain, and you're like, I have to
Absolutely.
see all those scenes again.
But we see him actually doing his job and watching himself, and he kind of recommends, like, edit yourself out of this stuff every once in a while, and have it be random when you do it.
Whoever you are, we just know you're probably somebody in the house, so edit yourself out. Not that they know that he's Arctor.
Not all the time, but Anyways, certain things.
Which again
like
is
watching
a
him
bonkers
do that.
thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then we get this scene where we watch him, Woody Harrelson choke, and Robert Downey Jr. do nothing about it.
And he's crawling across the ground,
and Keanu is watching this
Yeah.
in his suit the whole time, just like trying to call the house to see what's gonna happen,
to see if like he's gonna die because he lays there for a while, and then he's like, and then oh god, Robert Downey Jr.'s character is just like on the phone with 911, like, I've never sent myself mail. I don't know what our address is. Hold on, do, and like walks all slowly down the hallway, and you're like, every
so
part
good at
of
being
this
a
is
dick.
brilliant, like. Well, and just the fact. So let's talk really quickly about this third act when things really do kind of ramp way up, and this idea that Hank is actually Winona's writer's character. Amazing twist there that I in no way saw coming.
No, I did not either.
All.
Me neither.
And then they do send him off to this rehab facility because he's finally like ODing on substance D. But when he gets to the rehab facility, once he's there, then we get a conversation with Winona Ryder's character and one of the other guys from this government agency where they're basically have said Arctur, who is now known as Gary or something, like they give him a new name.
Yeah.
He's technically still undercover.
Yeah.
Like he's now been undercover. So you're like, who is he really? Like 3 levels down, 5 levels down, right? Is that he is this person. And, Philip K. Dick talked about this. I guess it was his 4th wife. It was so sad. His 4th wife left him and basically left him with this house that it pretty much is the house from Scanner Darkly. And he was like, it was like a 5-bedroom house. And I was there by myself. I didn't have a job. He's like, I was totally doing too much speed, way too many amphetamines to keep up his writing schedule to be able to pay the mortgage on the house. So he just started letting street people move in. Like all these random druggy kids move in. And after a while, somebody broke in, stole a bunch of his manuscripts out of his safe, which like, oh my God, what was on that stuff, right? That has never seen the light of day. So he was paranoid that the government was following him, but that he might also be an agent for that government. So like it really did all come out in the book where it's like and then eventually he tried to kill himself. And some friends intervened and took him to a rehab that was this new state-of-the-art rehab. And he said for weeks while he was still there, he thought he was there to spy on the rehab and write about it because he was still detoxing from all these drugs.
Hence the main story here.
Right, which is this character is 2 levels undercover and still doesn't know it. And I got a great flashback of RoboCop where he is standing in the living room of his drug den reimagining it where his wife is there and his kids are there and the whole room dissolves into what it was like back then, and he's like, even then I knew I was a fake. And you're like, so is this like weird implanty memory things that the government agency maybe did to him because he really at the end of it has no identity.
The timelines here are really wacky, right?
Yeah.
Like, how consistent are these timelines? And,
how much time has passed from the early stuff? Is he undercover in the early scenes with the tow truck and stuff?
We get this flashback of him being a dad, which was really cool.
That's what I'm saying. They're kind of RoboCop style, like, oh, my old family. And it's like, well, where are they now?
Exactly, like you just left them because you started doing this job and became hooked or something like that.
Winona Ryder's character is undercover that whole time they've known each other.
Yeah.
So you go, well, so how long has she been undercover?
Yeah.
Right?
There's definitely layers here. But you get both Connie and Donna at the same time when Keanu is having sex, like keeps changing.
Yes.
Even with the pan of a hump,
you
see their faces different and you're like, wait, what's going on? Who are you sleeping with?
And he goes back and he watches it again on his 3D scanner.
Yeah.
And he's moving it back and forth and it's changing between the 2 women. And even he, at that moment, you're like, does he, like, in that moment, does he know that he's Arctur watching that? Because you don't even know that for sure.
I think he does.
Maybe. It's hard to know, though, because later, when he does another one of the brain scan or the psychological tests, it's a different woman.
It is.
It's one woman, and she's talking to him. And okay, and then, at one point, I even wondered: is there actually 2 doctors? Because they talk about the fighting hemispheres.
Yeah, so
and they're
there's
kind
the
of
right and the left brain, and they're not talking anymore. That's how
and if you notice,
D disconnects you.
There's 2 doctors, and they're both talking to him, but they're kind of finishing each other's sentences. And there's one moment where the one doctor, the male doctor, goes like this and fixes his glasses, and at the exact same moment, the woman doctor puts her hair behind her ear. Like they do it in tandem, and I was like, oh my God, is there only one of them?
Wow, I hadn't put that together. That's wild.
That's what I'm saying, is like, I want to go and watch this again right when we finish this review.
Absolutely. He essentially gets reprimanded for getting hooked, and there's action that's going to be taken.
He's going to get charged.
And they wanted him to fake taking it this whole time.
Yeah, other
like
people
that.
have.
Yeah. And
so he's going to notice a difference on his paycheck.
Yeah.
Which I thought was amazing. Like, yeah, you're going to have to take it out of your paycheck to go to rehab.
But they're really setting Barris up here to Barris is Downey Jr.'s
character, yes.
Because this whole time, we haven't even mentioned this part, he's like he's the spy, right?
Yeah.
He's saying these guys are working for a government agency.
And he's
the one. It's not Arctur that we're talking about here.
Right. And he's been doctoring recordings that he's been making in the house of how Arctur and Winona Ryder's character, who I can't remember her name,
I think it's Donna.
Donna, yeah. So the Arctur and Donna, he's been doctoring recordings of Arctur and Donna to say that they are part of this like espionage organization that's trying to do like drugs and gun running somewhere. And it's great because he comes in with the recording and gives it to Hank, and they listen to it, and it sounds like Arctur and Donna are like, yeah, when can we get the shipment to the gorillas or whatever? And Hank's like, it's fake. And I myself was like, how do you know it's fake? And then later when you're like, oh, because Hank's Donna. So of course Donna knows it's fake because she's on the call.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, this movie is breaking my brain.
It really does.
It's breaking your brain in a way where, and I know that this is going to be, I should make shirts that say this because I say it so often, but another movie that could be a play. Yeah. This could be a play. Like, it's mainly people sitting in a room and talking, but once you introduce that real mind melter stoner concept of what if you could wear a suit and no one knew it was you and you were undercover, would you know if I was your boss if I had one too? But then when we were together with these two guys, we were all doing drugs together. You'd be like, what the hell,
I have
dude?
not done enough drugs in my life to get to that point to consider like
me either.
How
but
I've come up with that.
But I've been in a room and
story.
heard people talk like that, and it's not.
I
that
totally
far,
have too.
It's not that far removed from the Scooby snacks conversation in Slacker.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, but like to think of it in terms of a movie and a story. Like that's next level.
And one that has emotion and feels personal.
Yeah.
Because it also does, like, once I read the actual story of what happened to Philip K. Dick and sort of what made him write this, like, it made, because I felt paranoid and I felt like hopeless and sad, even though I was incredibly entertained. By the end of the movie, you're like, whoa, this is a dark, dystopic future, right? Like, this feels really gritty and dark. Even though, like, there isn't a ton of violence and there isn't a ton of, like, it's not exploitative at all, with the exception of the cameo by Alex Jones here.
That's right.
The minor cameo, which actually was
he's
really
also in Waking Life, right?
He is, and it's funny because
weird. How is that connected?
So, in 2000, when he was in Waking Life, which I want to say was 2004, 4 or 3, he basically had a small time radio cable show. He was on like public access TV, and he came in and auditioned for a part in Waking Life because he was a huge fan of Slacker. Of course he was, right? A movie about conspiracy theories. Of course Alex Jones is a huge fan of Slacker. And he and Linklater was basically like, shit, show me what you got. And so Jones went on this rant that's really close to the rant that he does in Waking Life, which is actually really funny. And it feels very much like Network. It's like, get angry, tell me you can't stand it anymore. Like, felt like that. I don't know if you've seen this scene where he's basically reprising the guy that's like, man, there's going to be bombs putting in baby carriages and shit's going to blow up. He has a car with speakers on it, and he's going down the street, and he just gets like 3 minutes to rant in Waking Life. And it's really funny. And he does kind of the same shtick here in Scanner Darkly. And, Linklater, years later, this was, I think, last year in an interview, he said, yeah, like, back then, Bush was in the White House, and he was anti-Bush, and he was kind of crazy, and so it was funny. And he's like, we all just thought he was a total riot, like, super funny. And he's like, then Obama gets in office, and the dude goes even further off the deep end, and all of a sudden he gets, like, a nationally syndicated show. And he's like, and we were all like, oh, shit. And he's like... And in the last, like, 2 years, he's like, when he got kicked off of
Twitter
and YouTube and all that, he's like, me and some of my longtime producers I've been friends with forever since back then were like, I can't believe anyone takes this dude seriously. And he's like, I haven't talked to him since they did Scanner Darkly. And he's like, but it scares me so much that people take him seriously. And it's funny to think, we talked about it in Slacker. Slacker has characters in it from back in the day when conspiracy theorists were cuddly, right? And kind of like these funny, like, fringy people. And you're like, now, yeah, they're Alex Jones. And so it's a kind of a funny collision of those two worlds, probably where Linklater was like, oh, never mind, this isn't funny anymore.
for sure.
Right?
Wild.
So, yeah.
I was wondering what the connection was there.
Yeah, it was just he
I knew you
randomly
would know the
showed
answer.
up. Yeah.
So once we get this reveal here with Winona Ryder being Hank the
Yes.
whole time, which is, like you said before,
Mind melting.
totally didn't see it coming at all, but we kind of get her, that's just kind of the first part of this twist, and we find out that the whole New Path Recovery Rehab Center
Yes.
is where they end up sending him because he's sick. And we find out that that Substance D is actually manufactured and distributed by another part of
where they do like
of New Path
horticulture, kind of like they have a farm
They
industry.
basically said, you know too much, you need to go out here and be quiet. And he finds, one of the blue flowers they're talking about.
And there's obviously some other level of mind control going on here, because not only did they give him a new name, but he sees the blue flowers, which harkens back to when Hank tells him, oh, if you're having problems with your girlfriend, go down to such and such street, you can get her a good bouquet of this flower called the blah blah blah. You'll know it when you see it because it's a blue flower. And Hank tells him that. So he looks down, he sees the blue flower. The guards come up and tell him, you didn't see that. And he looks and he doesn't see it anymore. And you go, how deep does this go of their ability to control him? But then he still fights back against that and is able to take some for evidence.
Puts them in his boot.
But again, you go, okay, so the government's plan was to have him be a secret agent but still be monitored by Donna while in the house, get addicted, get sent to the rehab, and then still continue to be monitored as a secret agent in the rehab under this new assumed name while he's being mind controlled there to find evidence that they are the ones that are actually making Substance D.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. It is upstream color. It is so dense and these
I love
threads.
that she wants to get out too. She's just like, I can't do this anymore.
Well, because she's horrified, right? And she's like,
they set him up.
Yeah. Well, and she's like, I don't like. Okay, so now he's there. Now what the hell do we do with him? Like now we leave him there.
Yeah.
And until he can give us more to do with. This reminds me not so much the movie. It reminds me so much of the book Naked Lunch, because again, and again, an autobiographical tale.
Two things wrong with that title.
It's like when they go to see a rated R movie and it's Barton Fink.
Yeah.
No, but what I was gonna say. Sorry, Simpsons sidecar there.
Yeah.
William Burroughs is so messed up on heroin that he believes he's a secret agent, right?
And a bug.
Well, he's an exterminator. He thinks that he's drinking the milk of bugs. So,
of course,
yeah,
naturally. Great movie.
Fantastic.
Surprisingly, never seen it, and sad I it's been swept under the rug for so long.
I decided that we should put it on the list, even though I had never seen it, because it's a science fiction movie, which is so far outside Linklater's wheelhouse.
No doubt. Yeah, I agree with that. He doesn't really have a lot of them, but honing it in the way he did here, it worked beautifully.
And it's personal.
I'm going to go buy this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I really, really enjoyed it. It really was like something I hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
It had elements of a lot of things I've seen, but it also did things that were wholly unique.
Yeah.
And that totally stood out to me. Really excited to finish this festival and get more into Linklater and just understanding who he is, because I think we batch these director and genre things into groups of four, but I think there's a reason. I think somebody after that. All these themes throughout that you don't necessarily connect if you're not watching these in this order. So please like and subscribe and follow along.
Yes.
And play along with us. We have a lot of people that do that, and it's super fun.
Yes.
So please do that.
And next week, we will be getting into the third installment of the Linklater Festival, 1996's Suburbia, which is based upon a play. So it won't make sense for me to say my catchphrase next week.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Although I do wonder how they did it as a play. I'm like, was it like a cardboard limo? Anyway, we'll talk more about that next week. For this week, I'm Adam Sherlock.
I'm Adam Pulcher.
See you guys.
See ya.
recording?
Yep, we're good.
I'm recording. Do you want to do the clap?
Aw.
There we go. Okay, so when we did our tops and flops, we did our tops and flops, and I forgot that there was an honorable mention that I wanted to talk about, and I completely forgot. Like while we were talking, I just went through my top 5, and I didn't get to one that I was like, I didn't see it. I don't even know if it got released in the theater, but it is a movie that came out in 2019, and it kind of I was speechless, really. So what I wanted to do was show you the trailer, and then have you tell me and our audience.
So you're not showing them?
We'll maybe show some of it. We'll show a couple pieces of it,
Maybe
but
a little picture in picture.
yeah, picture in picture. We'll do a picture in picture, and I want you to explain what the movie LaQuisha is all about. Are you ready?
I guess.
Okay, here we go.
LaQuisha.
LaQuisha.
You turn up the brightness a little.
Okay.
You always seem to say the right thing to just the right person. What's your secret?
I'm really just talking to myself. I don't charge for my advice.
Well, you should, because it was amazing. I saw this, and I thought of you. You will be a hit.
Nice
in
job
no time.
application.
To the Joe Show. I
Minorities.
submitted myself to a radio station for my own show.
Well, congratulations.
They rejected me.
Well, congratulations then.
Oh my
You weren't
god.
right for your own show?
Jason skipped it. We need to get the money for this school.
Is he LaQuisha?
$13,000 a semester? Asking me is their own show. If I was a black woman, I'd be perfect.
Oh no. Oh no.
She's brilliant. I know. Get her in here.
Oh my
Biggest fan
god.
on radio,
Please
but I
stop.
still need my anonymity.
Oh.
It's not a crime. It's theater.
You live with LaQuisha.
Oh.
What's your problem?
I don't think that.
Oh shit.
Oh, I ain't talking to you, not the way you sound. Next caller.
You go, girl.
Be good to her. If you good to yourself, you can be good to others. Don't be too good because the police will come around.
I gotta say, I'm half intrigued.
I got another job.
Doing what?
Consulting work. What the hell would you know about being a white guy anyway?
I know quite a bit.
LaQuisha is a real role model for every
Oh,
African
yes.
American woman on this planet.
I'm having such vicarious embarrassment.
And LaQuisha, officer.
2020? 19 it came out?
2019.
Trapped in a white man's body.
You need to talk to LaQuisha. Just because she's a woman and a black person doesn't mean that she doesn't
His therapist is trying to get him to talk to LaQuisha.
On a bridge above the river.
What a twist.
But thanks for calling. Enjoy your jump.
Wow.
Gotta start listening to her.
Wow.
So, hold on. Okay. Thoughts about LaQuisha?
I just can't believe that exists.
Yeah.
Like you said, in this day and age.
Just came out.
Fresh
Fresh
hot off the press.
Hot off the press. Fresh out of the oven.
Oh man. That is disturbing.
Yeah.
I kind of do want to see it though.
I know you say like creepily intrigued, like, ugh, okay.
Should that be a punishment review movie?
Ooh, God, I don't know. I already have douche chills. I don't know if I should.
Wow, just to it's almost like that's like Michael Scott level shit that's going on right there, right?
Yeah.
Like
Well,
that's,
doesn't it feel like a fake movie at the beginning of Tropic Thunder?
yeah,
Right?
totally.
Where
Yeah.
it's like that's what Jack Black's character did was LaQuisha, and you're like, well, yeah, that's the most tasteless, offensive thing you could possibly do.
When I first caught wind of what was happening, I thought he was gonna start dressing and acting like a black woman and doing blackface, and I was like, oh no.
It's like a Mrs.
So
Doubtfire.
I went way deeper than they could have, I guess.
You were like,
Yeah.
your imagination made it more offensive. So when you saw what they were actually doing, you were like, could be worse. Could be blackface.
that wasn't where I was going,
Yeah.
but that did kind of happen.
I mean, and that's
But I didn't know where it was going, so obviously.
I mean, that's a fair review. Like the fair review is, it says across the bottom of the DVD, it's not blackface.
Oh no, terrible.
2 stars.